Yo everybody, welcome to Blunder'N'Bungle's Blun-Bung Radio. I am your host Revutaro.
And this is Kage Palazzo.
And Ruru Monsoon.
And welcome to our first sit down and talk about whatever the heck we want radio broadcast.
All right, about time.
Yeah, so this week we're actually going to talk about something that came out, let's see,
I think about 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Has it been that long?
It feels like
we're
it has
so
been.
far behind the times already.
Yeah.
That's centuries in internet time.
Yeah, pretty much.
But yes, this week's topic is Final Fantasy VII's new remake that has just got released. Again, we're saying 3 weeks ago. It could be longer, it could be sooner. We don't know. We're kind of out of it right now. We don't know when the time. We're kind of topsy-turvy. But that's the topic this week.
We've got such a good reputation for getting dates right on things already, so why not?
Yeah, so why not?
True.
That makes perfect sense to me.
So I guess the first thoughts are, what are your guys' first? I mean, we've seen this coming out, it's been a few years now. We keep getting like little glimpses of what's it gonna look like, and now it's out. So what do you guys think so far?
So I can say this project is very near and dear to my heart because I have literally been following the Final Fantasy VII Remake since they initially teased it for the PlayStation 3. And now they never actually said on the PlayStation 3 that they were going to be making a remake, but when Square Enix was working to sort of figure out what was the PS3's potential, what could they do with it, what was its power, they recreated the intro scene to Final Fantasy VII in PS3 graphics and made the huge mistake of then displaying it to all the Final Fantasy fans who immediately started clamoring for if you're gonna do this, we freaking want it. And this was years ago.
I was about to say, yeah. When did the PlayStation 3 come out?
PlayStation 3 was like 2005 and 2006.
Oh my gosh, this has been in the making for 15 years.
Well, it's been up in the air for that long.
I mean, like I said, the Square Enix vehemently said this is not anything that we're doing. We
It's
are
just
not
a tech
making a game.
demo.
It was the technical demo, but they dangled the golden fleece in front of us.
The golden fleece.
That basically was.
And we
The
all
silver fleece of
wanted
Sephiroth's hair.
that takes a gallon of product a day to keep that shiny. And
Oh yeah, we saw that. And what did we see that?
the Crisis Core?
Oh yeah, that's right.
Is it Crisis Core or are you confusing that with Advent Children?
No, it's one of the video games where you play as Zack.
Yeah, that's
And-
Crisis Core.
Yeah,
See,
they
I know
mentioned
what
it
I'm
was a lot.
talking
Yeah.
about.
Yeah.
Some more product it takes from my hair to get done. But yes, so and I even
So
remember
April
because
10th,
when
April
Advent
10th.
Children came out, do you remember that? Because
Yeah.
they kind of used some of the clips, right? So everyone was like, "Hey, I guess they were just making it for the movie." But then, nope.
Well, the movie came out around 2003, if I recall.
Oh really?
Yeah, it was a long time ago.
Gosh, yeah,
2003.
we're talking about. No, was it that long ago? I just remember the internet exploding with
I was gonna say Google
people.
it. Plaza's gonna Google it.
People downloading
Target.
and torrenting it, and all of the internet police having to go arrest every teenager in the world for watching it.
Yeah.
That was
2005.
That was
my bad.
basically how that
2005.
worked.
2005.
So when the PS3 came out.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Wow. But anyway, so yeah, it came out and we all started playing it.
Well, some of us just watch it being played.
Well, that
because,
is what I do best. I drink and I watch and I say how horrible you're doing and I try to give you an honest critique and what you can do better. But yes, so we've watched, I've played it. I feel like, whatever. Anyways, but yeah, so what are your...
Well, I was just I gave that whole PS3 explanation so I could actually say that ever since they finally announced that the promise had been made and they would be making this remake. I had been watching the news. My Google feed had been giving me updates on the Final Fantasy VII remake for like at least once a week for the last 2 years. I got every time there was a position that was announced on Indeed.com that Square Enix was looking for designers and made everybody think, oh my god, they just fired their whole production crew. It was for a while, that's what it looked like, if I recall. That
it did look like that.
Square kept saying, oh no, everything's fine, don't worry about it. Final Fantasy VII Remake is completely on time and on track. By the way, is there anybody out there who knows how to make video games?
Yeah, just insert House on Fire with the dog and sitting at the table going, this is fine. That's basically the whole remake situation as far as its production. It's been kind of like that for a while with Square Enix, though, is that they go through so many stages to release a game now. It's kind of...
Well, I imagine that the big problem that Square Enix is now dealing with is they have a reputation for good games. So that means they have to like second guess themselves all the time, because they've dealt with this fallout that no matter what they do, if they try sticking to their original formula, half of the people that follow them are clamoring for something new. They're like, oh, this is awful, we've seen this before, why won't you like come up with something new? And then they come up with something new and completely different, and half of their audience is like, what the hell were you thinking? This is terrible, why can't you just stick with what you know best? And then Square Enix is in the middle going, fire everyone!
And then there's us who are just like, we just like to see a new game come out every once in a while with a good story, that may or may not deal with 4 crystals of the elements, and you have to collect them.
There are 6 crystals of the elements. So I don't care what anybody has to say.
That is debatable in the first 5 games. For sure.
Well, you know what? They can be remade for all I care.
Well, some of them have, and there's still 4.
So anyway, the Final Fantasy VII Remake. I'm feeling that this is one of the big things going on the internet right now. And warning for anybody who has not yet played this game.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. We're probably going to be delving a little bit into actual story and changes, differences from the original game and the new game. Because there has been a whole lot of talk going on lately that this game, while it bears the title Final Fantasy VII Remake, is actually more of an alternate universe tale in the Final Fantasy VII Historia.
More like a reboot-ish.
And because there's so much more going on in this game than the original game. I've now made it to chapter 7. I know I've got about 16 hours of playtime, because I'm one of those really awful, thorough RPG players where I have to walk up to like every picture hanging on the wall and check it, and look underneath every teapot and go, is there any gil in there?
I'm looking for a potion.
Hey, I have found a lot of potions in this game. So I
don't think I bought any potions. High potions, yes, but regular potions, no.
I feel quite rewarded in this game from my JRPG playstyle. But yes, I feel that the first time I played the original Final Fantasy VII, at 16 hours into playtime, I was way out of Midgar. I was probably dying to the Midgar Sormer, at least, trying to go through the cave towards Fort Condor. So just basically a lot further on. That's already past, learning how to get Chocobos. That's past, doing all of these other world map events. And at this point in the game, I have not yet blown up the second reactor. After all of this time, the second reactor still stands, because there is just so much more going on in this game. And I'm sure we're going to, just to give a little preface here, we're going to see both some for and con feelings and emotions about this as the cast goes on. So I've probably been talking quite a bit here. I'll let I'll let Kage take over here for a bit. And first, let's get. He's been dying to actually talk about the length of the game here.
Yeah, I'm just when I heard that they were going to remake the game, I was actually initially very excited. Until they said, "Oh, we're splitting the game up into multiple episodes," and that pretty much started the downward curve from my initial expectations and excitement to where it is currently right now, it is still currently below that. And the more reason is because as I'm now finally playing it, because I got tired of people trying to talk around me when they're talking about the game and not trying to spoil it for me, I was like, screw it, I'll finally play. Because initially I was just gonna be like, I'm gonna wait till it's all done so I can just play it in one go, because I want to play a completed game. And I'm not. So with this whole idea of just the first chapter of this, which was supposed to initially be 3 chapters long, but now they're saying they're probably extending that more. Is the first chapter ends when you just about leave Midgar, and that's like the first 5, maybe 6 hours of the actual real-time game of a 3-disc PlayStation 1 game, and I'm just like, why? And then I started playing it, which, by the way, what I've played has been good. I will say that, because I like the battle system. It reminds me of
he is like
15.
shaking with
I'm like,
it's good.
It's not that kind of. I'm shaking to emphasize that.
Well, they can't see you.
I know, but the only people who know that are the ones sitting here, and you're the one making me look like I'm shaking. So, but I'm trying to emphasize that that the battle system's great, because it pretty much takes from 15, and I loved 15. It's one of my top 5 Final Fantasies. And I like the battle system, and the battle system's pretty similar to that. I like how they did the summons, kind of, again, similar to what they do in 15. I do like the side quests and how you get around and how beautiful the game looks. The graphics and the music are excellent. When it sticks to what was in the original story, it does it really well. And that's where it stops, and then it goes to all this extended stuff. Because it took 3 hours to get out of the first reactor to the 7th heaven. And that was like something that took maybe 15 minutes tops.
But you actually enjoyed it, though, doing
But
that.
I'm just saying that I'm like, okay, I'm seeing where all this extra stuff is coming from.
Right.
And then seeing all the added character development of all the side characters. And I'm, again...
I mean, let me ask you this question.
Sure, go for it.
Should the day come that Biggs, Wedge, and Jesse bite the big one,
Which they will.
are you not going to feel much more for them than in the original?
See, that's the great thing about this, is they're creating a backstory for it. It's just not, you're getting more of an attachment to the character.
I'm going to leave that up to interpretation, because because to be honest, I knew how Crisis Core was going to end. I already knew what's going to happen at the end of Crisis Core. But when I played Crisis Core and got to that ending, I was nearly sobbing.
Right.
Because that was much more powerful. So
I mean, it's like the original when Zack died in the original Final Fantasy VII. You didn't even know who he was.
No, I didn't.
When he died in Crisis Core,
well, yeah,
it was huge.
That's the whole thing, though. Is the whole character development and the story development, which
right,
gets you attached to the character. I mean, it's just like,
but
think of like Titanic.
Crisis,
we know how that
but
ended.
the thing with Zack's storyline in Crisis Core was that it only had like bits and pieces of it in 7. To where they could make an entire new game on it and just have those small elements put back into it just to help with the continuity. But they didn't really have a story for Zack, other than you knew Zack was the actual person that Cloud was emulating throughout the entire first portion of the game. So you could make an entire game based off of that, and I actually like that. So when it comes around to with these other characters that have been growing and some of the new characters that they've inserted into it, I will have to see. I mean, I would like to have that same emotional feel, but I can definitely tell that they've padded this quite a bit to make it look pretty. So.
So my take on a lot of this has been that yes, there is a lot going on, that we're dealing with a game that we know is only going to be the first chapter of at least a 4-chapter long series. What I'm not quite on the same page with is a lot of people who are upset by this. Is just that I don't really understand like the difference between, playing this game, which, chapter 1 will still be a complete chapter. Like, it won't be the complete Final Fantasy game, but it is going to be a complete chapter with basically a to be continued. This is the same thing we've seen like in Final Fantasy 14, where the game is still not done. We've had this game out for years now, and we just keep getting expansion pack and expansion pack that's building up towards the conclusion of the game, but there is still not a 100% complete game. And I, for one, have spent so much money on MMOs, and granted, MMOs have a much bigger cycle. You have the hosting of it, you have the expanding world and everything. So it's like, obviously you're going to spend a lot of money in monthly fees and everything on your account on an online game versus a game that you're playing once and then you're going to get through. But even if I have to spend $60 to $80 per chapter for 4 games, that's what, $280 total for getting 4 chapters at $80 each. I've spent over $3,000 over the last 5 years playing Final Fantasy 14. So I just feel like, yes, you can expect that an online game is going to be more, but just the amount more is staggering. And when I look at thousands of dollars versus the $280 to eventually have the complete 7 remake, I'm kind of losing the whole, like, that this is a bad thing.
Well, you're comparing apples to oranges, really, because MMOs are not the same as a single JRPG run. This game also did come out in a complete form where you can finish from start to finish. Any new material it came out with, it came out in movies or sequels. That's fine. With an MMO, it's constantly evolving. There's going to be more stories unless interest in the entire game stops, in which they will just cut the game or finalize a final story. Those expansions add more story and more content to that game that's continuously live for subscription. And the reason they do subscription is because it takes money for server and it takes money to upkeep with new things for people to keep developing for this, something that's everyone's going to be on consistently 24/7. You have a game that comes out that has a beginning, middle, and end. It came out that way, and now you're going to take chunks of that and then over the course of 5 years expand upon it, but make also changes and alterations. And we don't know how many are going to come out and how much, because when a new expansion comes out, we know how much it's going to be. We're usually given a good 6 to 12 months ahead of time to know what this is going to do and what kind of story it's going to have. With 7, it's all up in the air right now. We initially had 3 chapters, now we have maybe 4, maybe more, and there's words of, there's going to be DLC small chapters that you can order. This is reminding me of the Final Fantasy IV sequel. I forgot what it was called, probably Another World or something like that, which initially came out in that type of episodic format, and I never got it because I thought that was stupid. 15 kind of did that too, but at least 15 was released in its form from start to finish, with holes in of itself, fine. Their DLC chapters, which you purchase later, added to that story and it just fleshed out the details that the original did not. This is setting a dangerous precedent.
So before we delve into Final Fantasy VII starting this precedent,
cool.
Which is I want to sort of just give a not so much a counter argument, but at least play devil's advocate here, because I know immediately I'm probably going to be shot for even saying this.
Go for it.
Breath of the Wild.
Oh, you're going to get shot for this.
Just because Breath of the Wild was released as, a complete game.
And it is.
But we're finding out now, maybe it's not. Maybe what's Ganon called in this one? He's
Calamity
Ganon. Thank you.
Yes.
The Calamity Ganon at the end of the game may have very well only have been sort of like a shadow puppet of the actual Ganon that is about to be released in Breath of the Wild 2. Now, this is all fan speculation, but of course this is, again, we're really up in the air because there is sort of no one really knows what's coming in the next Breath of the Wild, a game which, by the way, has also had several paid expansions to it in order to get more side quests, learn about extra characters, and get extra dungeons and material out of it.
And again, those extra things are fine, but as far as the sequel goes, you're using fort knowledge to justify this. When we played Breath of the Wild and finished Breath of the Wild initially, that was the end of the story, and it was a satisfying end to the story. There it was just like, okay, it's the end. Kind of like when you finish another Zelda, it's the end of the story. Boom, you're done. The only reason why you're using that now is because now we have foreknowledge that there's a sequel to that same game, which, by the way, there's been sequels to other Zelda games before. Majora's Mask, for instance, A Link Between Worlds, the Oracle games, Link's Awakening, and Zelda 2, even all the way back to Zelda 2. Those are sequels that continue that story, but they're self-contained. You don't have to play the other game to understand what's happening in the others.
Now, hold on. Now, I would argue there that most of the sequels don't make as much sense if you didn't play the game that
they do make
preceded
sense.
it.
In which respects?
Just like if you're playing Majora's Mask,
Right.
and you didn't play Ocarina of Time,
You could still enjoy it.
well, of course, you can enjoy
Yeah.
any game without knowing where it's coming from, but
Right.
you would be completely lacking the whole knowledge of what is Link even doing out in the woods. Like, the whole point of his quest is that he was out there looking for Navi.
Right, and it said so in the intro.
Right, but that's like, who's Navi? What's the point of this?
Okay.
This is all information that you gain as knowledge from playing
Which is
through
what
the series.
that's why it's a sequel. A self-contained sequel. I have, again, no issue with that. It's a separate game, though. This is, you already have something that's already established as a full, complete game, and now you're chunking it up and releasing them as full, brand new games that, with the same price tag of each chapter, was what the price was for this full game that you got 20 years ago.
But again, you have to think of it that it was 20 years ago.
Yes, I understand.
So
that.
like they were even
But there's a
limited
lot
by
of
the graphics and stuff. So nowadays you have to think of stuff.
There's
like
a lot of remakes that are done nowadays that are still completely in full without having to do that methodology.
Graphics
And
like
he's got a point, because he's saying like what comes to mind is like the Pokemon remakes,
Right.
Fire Red and Leaf Green, Heart Gold, Soul Silver.
Even the Pokemon Let's Go's.
I refuse to count those as
You
remakes.
can do that if you wish, but
But the one thing that I will say is that like what I really actually liked a lot about when they remade Fire Red and Heart Gold was that they updated it to the current standings of the modern platforms. And that's where I do see that a lot of this, the controversy, quote unquote, with Final Fantasy VII is coming from, is that I do kind of feel that if they were able to do this, like make this whole world with Final Fantasy 15, why is Final Fantasy 15 one game, but Final Fantasy VII Remake being broken up into multi-games? And the only thing that I could really think of to justify this is if Final Fantasy VII is made so much more massive than 15, which is the only game we can really compare it to, then I could see it justifying a higher price tag. If it turns out that once 7 is complete, that its entire length, all the resources in it are still equivalent to 15, then you're absolutely right. It should have retained a single game's price tag.
well, I guess that's unfortunately we're gonna have to wait and see. To be honest, there's a lot of stuff in Final Fantasy VII when it was released that had a lot of plot holes and non-completed things.
you mean the original?
The original in this case. Square Enix or Squaresoft back in the day had a few games that ended up like that due to budget or money cuts. Xenogears comes to mind. But
All of Disc 2.
all of Disc 2. But there's a lot that they could work and expand upon and fill in those plot holes using not only, just some of the maybe concepts that they had back then, plus with all the added material they've had since the release of the original game. Dirge of Cerberus, Advent Children, Crisis Core, Before Crisis, all the small novels that came out with Advent Children, even stuff from Kingdom Hearts if you wanted to. Just all of that material that could expand upon it and at least finish and flesh those out before adding something completely random, which I won't go into it right now. But there's one specific situation that comes up pretty early in Chapter 2, and it kind of pops up again when you start Chapter 4. And I'm just like, what the hell are these things? Why are they here? There is no reason for them to exist either or.
All right,
but
so
anyway.
I'm going to go ahead and drop the spoiler here.
Go ahead, just do it then.
I'm positive you're talking about the ghosts.
The ghosts.
And
the weird ghosts.
But I have, and so I'm only on Chapter 7, so I don't actually know what these
These are
ghosts
not, by the way, they're not Phantom Train Final Fantasy VI, nowhere to run, nowhere to hide ghosts. These are like weird specters.
but my theory is that this is the start of the reunion. That this is actually Genova beginning to pull herself together.
And by the way, none of us have finished the game yet. This is just our initial concept.
Yes, this is just my initial, a whole
I'm only
sort
in
of,
Chapter 4.
if I was writing this, how would I try to make sense out of this? Because obviously there's, people have played Final Fantasy VII. I've played the original Final Fantasy VII 4 times. Yeah, so it's if I was playing the exact same game but in prettier graphics, I'd probably get bored pretty quick. So I can say that I, for one, am glad that things are progressing a little bit different and is making me have to think about what's happening and actually go all right, why would this be happening? What could be causing something like this to happen? And why is whoever, making the story feel that it was important to happen now? It doesn't mean that I am right at all. It doesn't mean that it has an actual good reason for happening, but it's at least making me think about that. If I was doing this, why would this be happening? And I think it's, and I know everybody has said, it doesn't need to have anything different, but I can appreciate that it's different and it's keeping me enthralled rather than making me go through a game I've already, would have been playing for the 5th time.
Right. Now, the only thing that I want people to understand is that there is a specific version of this game, which is called the First Class Soldier Edition for the remake, for just this section of the game. That thing sold for, and it's on, eBay now, it's being sold for $700. I think it came out for $350, I think, was the original price tag for this, and it had a whole bunch of collectible stuff. But think about that, $350 for multiple. It's the only thing is, I don't mind the changes. I like some of the changes. I'm confused with some of the story stuff right now. Maybe later on it'll make more sense. Maybe we'll do another cast later on when we're both done, when all of us are done with the game. Okay, but as it stands right now, I'm just leery on how this is progressing as far as a company and customer standpoint. That's all I'm a little concerned about.
Now, I will say, Square Enix has a reputation that they release games all the time with, they'll say, all right, this is the collector's edition's $150, includes art book, includes commentary from the creators. You get this special pin, and I got the Final Fantasy VIII collector's edition
$330
that actually had the I don't even know where this is anymore, but I actually have the Griever ring, and what was Squall's pendant called? That had a name too.
Yeah, I don't know.
But I had the collection with all of that, and that was $100 to get.
Yeah.
So I'm I know Square Enix is no stranger to releasing a whole bunch of extra crap to hype up their collection.
Yeah. Well, I guess we'll have to finish those games and find out, huh?
Yeah, so last 30 seconds, any final thoughts you guys think? So what are your guys' actual thoughts on the game? So far from what you've played, Chapter 7 man, Chapter 4 man, what are your actual thoughts on you're liking it, you're just kind of confused how it's going to develop, how's it going to happen?
I'll say that I'm definitely hoping to get a solid conclusion for Chapter 1. Like, I will be fine with it if chapter 1, because it has to close in a way that we know there's more coming, but I want to see it hit a chapter climax. If we see it hit that climax and we feel that we've accomplished something, of course everything's going to be torn out from under us, I know this, but I want to feel that by the end of chapter 1 that I've accomplished something and am leaving with that, spirit of moving on to something for chapter 2.
Kage?
I am currently enjoying the game as the experience. I'm just wary about the future of how these type of games will be released. As far as right now, I'm excited to finish this game, and I will be playing it till the end. I'm just concerned about the future of how games will be released in this manner, as far as remakes or actual games.
It's still better than microtransactioning us to death.
That's true too, I guess.
Well, that's it. Okay.
That's it.
All right, well then, thank you everybody for tuning in to this inaugural episode of Blunder'N'Bungle's Blun-Bung Radio. And so, once again, this has been Revutaro,
Kage Palazzo.
And Buru Monsoon.
Thanks all, till next time.